So we finally got a game tonight. Happy New Year, 2018. The theme of today is Moyos. In particular, we're going to talk about how to handle them, how to play against them. And while I wait for people to come into the stream, I'm just playing a game with my lower ranked Tajem account, which we just need one more win for the double rank up now. And just playing a basic, albeit quite contemporary Joseki here. Maybe not anymore. Well, this is kind of a Joseki variation, but it's not usually chosen. So this white jump doesn't make too much sense because I can still connect under. So I suppose I'll just do it right away. I believe white's move here is actually, when white wants to fight here, it's just standing up like this, which looks really slow, but it stops the connection under. So yeah, nothing to fear here. Already black's at a slight advantage since this is, white's not really getting anything out of this. Okay, so now let's see which side is the big side. So this is crowded and this side is crowded too. So we want to either pincer or play on this side. Well, if we pincer, that means we might then after get a chance to approach here and force white onto this crowded side. On the other hand, if we respond and then white responds around here, the places we'll end up playing after is the top or that side. So actually, by this logic, I personally am going to choose a pincer here. And I'm just going to keep it nice and simple even, just like that. White, my board is off screen, you say. That is, oh yeah, right. I keep forgetting that I have that, this new monitor with a different size. Okay, thanks for that. I'm gonna fix that. Let's see. Open my OBS. This should be better already, I think. So yeah, let me know if there's any other problems. Thanks. How's it going? Happy New Year. I'm just playing a game while I'm waiting for people to flood in. So now white has developed along this side and I've gotten this side. And at least now I get the chance to dictate the next direction. So I'm going to play here, develop from where I have a wall, and force white onto the crowded side. White is likely to respond since there's not much space around here. And then I would be able to be the first one to play in this quadrant. This pincer is definitely pretty strange since I'm going to be able to jump here and threaten both, and there's not very much space here. There isn't even enough space for a 2-space extension. So, very questionable choice here. So I'm guessing white's going to jump here. But as soon as black gets to play this covering move over here, it's immediately already a bad result for white. Interesting. Well, not really, but black's still going to be able to play here, so it's going to be a better result for black. But usually when somebody's shoulder hits you, and they're shoulder hitting a lonely stone, usually you want to push one way or the other at least once before ignoring. Because if you push once here or here first, make white respond and then play somewhere else, white's next move here won't be sente, usually. However, if you ignore now, then white's next move here is sente. So usually the Joseki, so to speak, for this shape is either pushing here and then playing this knight's move, or pushing here, making white go up, and then playing this knight's move. But of course, you can always change it depending on the situation. So I could do that, push here and play this knight's move. This threatens to play this cutting move, like just strike all the way to here. Or I could just push and go somewhere else after. But playing here is really, really good and urgent, so I think I'll push this way, because it seems like white gets a more kind of awkward shape this way. And I'm less concerned with white's turn here now. So I could continue. That is totally possible. And white's shape would be even more sparse. Whereas when white turns here, because white has access after that to moves like this, technically it's very easy for white to get two eyes after that. So maybe I should push here. All right, you see how white's shape is just kind of nothing now? It's just a stick. So now I'm just going to play here. Now that I've already profited a little bit with this too, even if when white plays here, I'll even be willing to play a passive response if I have to. Of course, I'll check if I have to or not, but with all these gains and making white's shape kind of not a shape at all, it's okay then to suffer one slightly painful forcing move. So now I can play here or here, but for the sake of these stones here, I think I'd rather a solid connection with no Ataris out here that could be possible. Now this move threatens to connect under, but then the question is, do I care? Because of course it'll be a second line connection under, and black would be getting two moves elsewhere. So I don't care, but it's still worth thinking about an aggressive choice, which would be disconnecting, because then we will have a target to attack. And when you have something to attack, or otherwise when white is, when your opponent is weak, just like you, then, and what I mean is black has a weakness around here, right? This cut, and black is at least subject to one or two forcing moves around here. But whenever you have weaknesses, offense is usually the greatest defense. So if I were to keep this white weak, then I'd end up not really needing to protect my own weaknesses, because if they started cutting here, I'd be jumping this way and endangering this group. So yeah, but then I don't really need to continue. So let's see. I'll continue if there's a good move, a really nice one. So if I play here, white would go down, but white still has this monkey jump connection with the Kosumi. So this doesn't really do anything. If I play here, this would disconnect, but then the problem is it's not sente, because when I push, white just blocks. So this would be pretty slow, but it would do the job. White would lose these points and the points along here that white would get from connecting. So maybe I'll just leave it for now. Yes. So I'm just gonna go take somewhere big. So cutting these off could actually be pretty big, because with these stones here, there's Moyo potential around here. But at the same time, if white plays around here to make these safer, it's gonna be like basically 0 points for white still. And white can't even connect to this perfectly with one move. So then again, I'm not really concerned about this, am I? Playing here is a good move. It threatens moves like this, for example, or covering here. But if I play this, white will play here, and we'll end up playing out a sequence. That could be good, actually, because then it would make this one more in danger. And lastly, the thing I would be thinking about is just a simple move like this. A simple knight's move. There's no particular reason to make a far extension this way or this way, unless I'm going to go all the way to here. So I think I'll go with this. I'm pretty strong around here after all, so even locally I basically have 2 eyes here. So I'm expecting white to push out like this because it's the least passive response and it's pretty basic. And usually white will Hane, black will Nobi here, and white will Tiger's Mouth. And when black Hanes, this cut leads to black sacrificing this stone and getting a really painful squeeze on white with many forcing moves. So instead of cutting, white would just push up here again. And black would Hane and white would empty triangle. That's kind of the Joseki sequence. Okay, so white played this more passive response, which means I can either Tanuki or maybe connect like this. But then maybe this is a good time to disconnect white. And then when white jumps out, it might make even more sense to then play around here. But then white might cut. So, I could play this one, which makes white lose more in the corner, but I could also play this one, which could give me a connection here later. So it seems like this one could be better, but then when white peeps here, there's no more connection under. But the peep does have good effects on me for this side, so. Okay, I'm either going to disconnect these or I'm going to play here. Let's see. Well, it doesn't make that much sense for me to build up a bunch of stones along here. Like, I go here and white maybe pushes here if I'm not going to be able to attack this, right? So, okay, this move or this move. Okay, let's go with this one. Well, that seems like a mistake because that's just helping me with a connection under. Yeah, that didn't make sense. Okay, so now white is trying to reinforce his group in a way that is hopefully for him Sente. So our job is to figure out, first of all, do I need to play around here? So if white plays here, then I can Hane. Yeah. Because after white goes there, I'd be able to just cut. Or I could Hane here and cut, but then white would connect under. And this group would be in trouble, so. If white bumps, then I can still connect. So it seems like I'm okay. It seems like something like this is more powerful. I don't think white has any severe follow-up on this side. And luckily I have this connection under, so this push here was a really bad move. This doesn't really make sense either because white is actually already alive around here. There is some kind of agi in here, but it's not very strong right now, as far as I can tell. And that exchange doesn't make sense either. Like playing that and then not continuing. There are times when that makes sense, but here there's no reason. Because now when I take this stone, it's slightly better than if I just played Hane without that exchange by white. And I'm not about to play this descend either. So yeah, this was kind of strange. Now white's not that easy to attack, but still. And then it looks like white can't really cut me because white has his own cut here that would happen after that. So, but if I get stones around this side, it's still going to be good because it helps me with my weakness nonetheless. So I want to find a move that makes white feel awkward. Could be something like this even. Maybe even here. Let's try this one. If white ignores, I can attach here. And if white Hane's here, I can simply pull back. And I'll have two cuts waiting here and here. And 3. Oh. Yeah. N3 is something, I mentioned it earlier, and it's something that I've been waiting to do. But I just felt in this case that that attacking white would be good too, because if white responds, then I'm gonna get thicker and I'm gonna be able to build out here and cure many of the weaknesses, and then get some territory. And also it'll get really big too when I'm able to cut these off after. And even if white's able to defend in Sente, that would mean that my next moves would all just be Sente again. And so white would just be delaying the inevitable. So yeah, Tenuki was obviously good and possible. It's just, yeah, I thought about both. So now it's probably worth thinking about here, at least for a moment. Let's see. So yeah, I mean, that cut would be pretty big. I would have to worry about this stuff later, but I'm not too concerned right now. So cut, white fixes this, and I cut there. White Atari's up, and doesn't really have too much he can do, I think. So if white wedges here, I Atari, white connects, and I suppose I extend. Honestly, I think this is going to be okay. So let's try this. Happy New Year. Welcome. So, do this. Actually, I'm thinking about one more thing now, because especially with this area in mind as well, I should at least give thought to this Atari here. If white extends, I connect, and if white pushes, I cut. And that cut seems pretty strong. The other option is simply extending here. I actually think this one is going to be better. Because in the other variation, white has ways of, like, such as this move here, to threaten both. So now this one is just starting to have a better feeling to it. And as long as white's not alive yet, I can keep going. So even just now after this tiger's mouth, it's already the time when I might start thinking, okay, maybe I should stop. But I can't really stop if white's continuations are going to be too strong. I do have weaknesses, and I don't have very many liberties with these two stones. So shape-wise, I would want to be playing here. But then I also really want to turn here, or at least deal with this stone in some way, because white could probably jump to here. Well, that's usually the first thing to think about anyways, instead of pushing from behind. And it's possible because of that white stone sitting there. But then it doesn't always work, so you have to read it. And for me, I have to worry about this. Plus, if white plays here and I play connect under, then white can cut, so... I probably should play here, just to be reasonable. And I don't like making white stronger, but I might need to play this tiger's mouth. But hold on, because I do have this move, which seems to be sente, because it threatens this. So who knows, maybe I won't have to play that move and push from behind. And another thing is when I turn here now, well, there's nothing immediate, but white's liberties are starting to become an issue after that. So eventually there might be some use of that. So I think I will go ahead and play this. Okay, white ignores. But now white's going to have to live in Gote, and it's going to be a pretty nice sequence for me. So I'm cool with this. I'm very cool with this. Now white has to play here. And now I'm solid here too. And I'm almost alive with this group, so I want to peep, but of course white's going to push through, so I can't do that. And if I play a knight's move, I'm just going to have like a ton of weaknesses, I think. So maybe extend? At least if I extend, then white will still feel some pressure. Or I could push here, because even if white gets this shape here, I can always make it get filled in. But then white's going to get an eye around there anyways after I hane here. And it's not really clear what I would be getting from that, so... Seems like either Tanuki or extend here would be the right play. And since I'm not completely alive with this group, and then there's that cut that can happen after this, I think... yeah, something like this is reasonable. Okay, white is making this fight even bigger, it looks like. So of course I have to worry about this cut. This is a moment where I would definitely like to hane if I can. And it seems like I definitely can, because white can't capture these right now. So, yeah. What I'm actually afraid of is not really this cut, but this peep would be really annoying. Because white could peep, and if I play a tiger's mouth, then white has ways to make me connect here. And then my connection here is not perfect. So I want to connect, but I also want to play this. Net. I think I can. I don't think white can start doing this. Cool. So now it seems like I should just connect solid. And at least I'm threatening this move or attacking this. So now I can do something like probably peeping here, but still white might push and cut, so maybe not. Push, cut, here, here, here. This is quite big though, so that's unfortunate. But at least I can get this one in Sente, because it threatens these two stones. Of course, if white plays Hane, then my Hane back is not going to finish in Sente, but it would be quite painful for him to ignore my Hane. On the other hand, though, it seems like I have time to not Hane here, because any move I play around here is probably Sente on this whole thing. So, yeah, I will try that. These are not stones that I can easily throw away. It's unfortunate that I couldn't just peep here. Okay, so this one, although it doesn't really seem to help his shape at all. So I don't know why he's playing this, but of course I'm going to just connect under. I don't really know what this accomplishes. Yeah, that's really big and very painful for me, but it's not the most relevant to the current fight, so honestly, I think white might be about to die if I play my cards right. I mean, I'm happy with just cutting this off. If it's in Sente, that'd be really big. And then I don't mind anymore that white got to play here. Okay, so white connected that. And can white bust out of here? Honestly, he kind of can, because then there's two cuts here and here. So I'm going to let my Byoyomi run out and think about this a little bit, because it's pretty critical to the game. Man, I didn't want to have to play around here, but I didn't want to lose that second Byoyomi period. But hey, at least I became thicker in Sente. Maybe I'll be able to play a move like this and get all this territory. Alright, white is alive now. But at least I can also Tanuki, so I don't have much left here, but at the same time, white didn't get much either. So it's alright. And now these stones are actually, they can be discarded because of how alive he is here now. So not that I'm necessarily going to lose these stones, but if they ever come in danger, now that white's already alive here and already strong here, they are disposable. Maybe playing around here was big, but then white could 3-3 invade me, so I think that this made sense. Oh, I'm on my last overtime. When did that happen? I thought I had 2. Maybe when I hit 0, it actually lost that period. So that's unfortunate. There's a ladder potential there, so maybe I can threaten ladder. Another way would be to just surround here, but then it's pretty open here, so I really wouldn't be getting much. Okay, that is Sente, sure. That is probably Sente. But if possible, I would like to ignore that. So I think I'm gonna try to ignore that and start this. Because this is huge, man. This is really huge. So as long as I don't die with this group or this stuff, then, you know, this is pretty good locally. I guess I should ladder it. Technically, well, yeah, okay, I'll play ladder. If he plays here, I might be able to cut. So, probably at worst, I'm just taking a little bit of pain around here. So yeah, that reduces me, but it's not really threatening anything in particular. So seems like I can just play anything. I'm just gonna block. I don't really want anything to happen around here. I don't think I needed to block. And maybe this extension would have been better, but in any case, I don't think white has that much territory. White's main territories are this piece here and this corner, I think. So I should be ahead. I'm playing here because I want to just simply Hane here. Oh, and since he did a hanging connection, it means if he Hane'd, I would be able to cut. That's actually not threatening my territory. There's no way to break in, so yeah. That's not Sente. Now taking here looks pretty big, and cutting here looks big too. I think cutting here is fine. Unless I'm missing something, I don't see anything white can do here. Hence my move there. And since white played Atari, that means that White is leaving behind some agi there. And I can actually play this one. Albeit making this connect bigger for white now, since white would have this Atari and then this connect. This move is somewhat sente, but then it's not really sente, so. I can probably get away with something around here. But maybe I'll just leave that for now, because I'm not planning to continue. I'm not technically connected to anything here, so maybe I owe something here. When white Atari is here, I'm going to have to respond, so maybe this is actually bigger than it looks. So my moves are either this one or this take, and that's actually about it. So we're already well into the end game now, to be honest. Everything else doesn't seem very interesting unless there's a special weakness somewhere. So I think this one is big because it's just so painful if white plays that. Okay, so I guess I have to respond to this because that'd be pretty big. So black looks quite solid here. Yeah, usually you start from 3 down on tie gem. So I have a few accounts. So the first thing I did with these streams is I had this old 5 dan account and my other accounts are 7. So what I did was I did a series where I took that account to set back to 7. And then I did another one where I have a, what was it, 2Q or something? And then I took that account to, or maybe it was 1 dan, I don't even remember anymore. I think it was 2Q. Yeah, so this account started at like 2Q or something, and we're basically taking it all the way to 7 or 8 dan. But 3 dan is the maximum starting rank these days on tie gem. So even if I wanted to play seriously, if I was playing a new account, I would have to start at 3 dan. Some of them were boring. The boring ones were more like 2Q and 1 dan, and some of the 3 dans and 5 dan games, but this game was actually fairly interesting, even though I'm probably far ahead, but I had a lot of challenges and things to think about in this game. It was definitely not a snoozer this time. I don't really have the ladder actually. So, what to do here? I guess this isn't very big, but then what even is big now? Maybe this? Welcome to the stream, by the way. Have you been here before? That's interesting. I guess I should have exchanged this one first. That would have been a little better. Well, maybe I can do it now. I think I still can, actually. We played twice. Interesting. Well, I don't recognize your username, so I'm not really sure who you are. And yeah, I did things in the wrong order here, but it should be kind of okay. Zach. Okay, actually I know multiple Zachs. So which Zach? Zach, we played twice. I know like 3 Go player Zachs though. Oh, nice, okay. How's it going? I don't know what I'm playing there, but yeah. Ah, yeah, the Waterloo tournament. I want to come, but if I come, I have a lot of other things I'm giving up, so I'm still thinking. I definitely messed this variation up. I should have done the corner thing first. But overall, I mean, that corner incursion was pretty big too, so whatever. Oh, I guess I was connected already, actually. Oh well. And plus I have this Atari. Ooh, wait, did I just miss something? I kind of did, because I might lose some of my stones. But should be okay. Yeah. Oh, shoot. What's happening? Oh, I think it's alright. Yeah, he's misreading. Oh man, that scared me for a second. If he tries to capture me some like here, he's gonna lose these. Yeah, I want to come to the Waterloo tournament. Probably it's 50-50 at this point. So yeah, black should be solidly ahead now. And it looks like I can get this Hane as well as this take. So this is going to be a 5-point corner. That at least was sort of big, kind of, not really. I mean, it's just a few points, so it just means we're down to the small end game almost. But I mean, this is a place where only white could have made territory, which means it's kind of less important. Oh, actually, I'm forgetting about this part. I think I need to play around here as soon as I can. Oh, it's actually going to finish in Sente. That's awesome. Lucky. Okay, cool. All right. All right. Now what? What is big? This is a 2-point Sente reduction with a potential additional like fraction of a point for the potential of getting this and then the potential of getting a point here. So it's just over 2 points Sente. Let's see. Yeah, there's not too much else to play, honestly. Let's just randomly put a stone here. I don't think that was big, actually. Probably I could turn here. Yeah, this is kind of bigger. But at least I have follow-ups with this one. And maybe I can get this in Sente or something. So this one is sort of Sente-ish. I'll respond because I don't want to have anything strange to think about later. Yeah, okay, that seems like the biggest. And when he Hanes, it's kind of painful for me. Although if I can just make this part connected, then I'll actually be able to block that Hane directly. So maybe that's what I'll set up. Or I can just Hane back right now. Yeah, maybe that's what I'll do. It's a sad conclusion to that part, but it's only a small loss. Okay. Yeah, okay, that was important looking. Now what? Something like this? I guess so. I guess so. And there isn't a whole lot left to do. So I'll play this because it threatens to pull this one out. And it makes sure that I don't have to lose 2 points around here. If white played Hane and connect there, then later I would owe one more move around here. Plus I would have to worry about white Atarying there and then cutting everything and killing it all. So yeah, and it's Sente. Seems to be Sente. After that, I think I will maybe descend here because I have the follow-up Atari, but also if white gets the Hane and connect here, then unless all this connects to this side, I'm gonna have to fill in this one and another stone. So it's actually a pretty important point over here for the endgame. New Year's resolutions, anyone? Come on, give me your New Year's resolutions. Tell it to the world. Mine is just to start using my gym again and get back to like a healthier diet. And that's about it. I have a whole bunch of others, but I think it's better to maybe focus on one or two, at least for a New Year's resolution. My other one would be trying to maximize my work hours. Yeah, my New Year's resolutions are not really Go related. Getting to be a solid 2 down EGF. Yeah. I know European ranks are pretty strong, so that's a good goal. I'm not sure what your rank is now, but welcome by the way. But yeah, 2-dan EGF should be a good goal for anyone. I imagine that's I'm not too familiar with European ranks, but I imagine that's at least like 6 or 7 dan Taijam. Correct me if I'm wrong. You're 3-dan on Fox, but okay, do you win a lot at 3-dan on Fox? Oh, okay, one day, 1K. I can't talk. 1K on KGS. That's pretty good. So 1K on KGS, I imagine, is like it's hard to say for me, but it sounds like that's at least 2-dan. No, it might be better than 2-dan on Taijam. Does that sound about right? That means even right now you're probably 3 or 4 dan on Taijam, maybe even 5. The funny thing there is like I know people who can play at like at least 3 or 4 dan on Taijam who are like 1K to 1 dan on KGS. But then for me, I'm usually like 5 dan on KGS or at least a strong 4, and still I'm playing as a one just a 7 dan on Taijam. I think I can push to 8, but since right now all I'm doing is doing stream games, so maybe there's a bit of an extra challenge there, but I'm gonna try. I know now that I can at least get 7 dan even if I'm streaming and talking and wasting all my time, so I will try to get 8 dan on stream. I think I could at least get 8 dan on like off stream, but yeah. I'm about even so far, but most of my losses are due to blunders. Yeah. Well, blunders are our skill. Let's not forget that. That's something it took me some time to come to terms with, but uh, yeah. So, but blunders aside, you're still doing well at 3 dan on Taijam or on Fox. Well, thanks for the vote of confidence. I think I can. I don't know if it would be easy, but I do believe I can get 8 dan. Um, but we'll see. But it'd be a lot more fun doing it on stream, and I'm gonna try to play faster and talk a little bit less as I play, but it would be fun to be able to do that regardless. Just keep doing streams how I'm doing them and push to 8 dan. Yeah, so blundering, I would say is a combination of things. It's first of all, there's shape recognition, right? It's like when we're weaker, sometimes even missing Ataris. Like for me, when I first started, I had ups and downs in my improvement. So like I wasn't always improving fast, but um, I think at the beginning, like I was at a rank like let's say 10Q or better, and I was still missing Ataris sometimes. So no matter how quickly you shoot up, there's always going to be some weaknesses, some holes. And I think at that point it was just a pattern recognition thing. Like your eyes just aren't trained enough, so they miss things. And then the other part of it is like our condition, right? Our condition and like what time of day we're playing and our focus, like especially in tournaments. It's a bit of a marathon, right? So you have to have good focus. I can usually perform relatively fine in tournaments. Like I'm usually pretty satisfied with my tournament play because these days I have pretty good not tolerance. I have good mental endurance for playing lots of Go games in one day, which I didn't used to. I used to get like a headache just from playing one or two, like assuming I'm thinking and reading a lot. But now I can play like 10 games that are all serious and still be okay. Um, but like anyway, for most people, um, it's a mental endurance thing. You'll start to like have blurry reading and things will come out of focus. So, but I make a lot of blunders and mistakes online. That's the thing. I can't really focus very well online. It's kind of night and day between like my tournament games and my online games. Low stamina. Oh, I see. Yeah. Most of my friends report like losing the stamina after a few games, and I think that's pretty normal. Yeah, I think he's just gonna time out now. But I'll do a quick count, so let's see. Assuming he takes off this stone now, I'll be playing here, so I have 2, 3, 4, 5. So I have like 65 plus my difference in capture, so I have like 68 I count, something like that. And he has what, 3, 14. So he has like 26 points, not very much at all. Maybe actually there's more here, so it's actually uh, 31. So he has like 30, he has like 40 with Komi, something like that, 41. So yeah, I think the reason I was able to build it up was not just from playing like many games each day, but um, when I play each game, you guys can tell how much thought I put into most of my moves. So I think that kind of built up stamina. But sadly, that doesn't really necessarily make me a stronger player. It just means I can play a lot of games. Oh, I wish I could come to Europe for like the European Go Congress or something. I've been wanting to go to a Go Congress for a long time, but usually I just couldn't afford it. But it's something I'm gonna do a lot of in the future. Like, after I rise up in my job and save up. Oh man, Pisa. Yeah, and the European Go Congress is like what, 2 weeks or something crazy like that. Even the American Go Congress is at this point still a dream for me just to attend. But well, mark my words, I will go to both of those things. But yeah, one can hope. One can hope. Okay, so let's see. Oh, actually, I should do start. No, not new game. Start review. So this is just a common Joseki, and usually white will play something like this, and black will fix the corner, and white will extend. And then since there's a white stone around here, and usually you don't want the 4-4 corner to get a stone around here and a knight's move enclosure. So usually when there's a stone around here, as black, you want to play here. Oh, it's more expensive. But the flight maybe would be more expensive going to Europe. But either way, it's an expensive. It's gonna cost over 1K minimum for either one, I guess. But come to think of it, that's starting to become possible. So I guess maybe my years of waiting are starting to come to an end. So yeah, maybe I can hope for that in the next, at least in the next 3 years. Yeah, but I already have some trips lined up. Like I have I'm going to Hong Kong in the summer, and then I'll probably go to Japan at some point in the next 2 to 3 years. Yeah, going with others would be awesome. For a Congress, that's definitely what I'll try to do. I do have friends who have gone and who would definitely like to go as like a road trip sort of thing. Although I guess not a road trip in the case of Europe, but yeah. My girlfriend is Cantonese, so I'm going there with her family. It's my second time actually. And and we've both wanted to go to Japan for so long. Like I've been to Hong Kong and to Korea, but South Korea, but yeah, still I haven't been to Japan. Despite liking anime, liking lots of other Japanese stuff, loving Japanese food, have not been to Japan yet. Sad life. So yeah, Black would want to approach here now. Replay. Original. So this doesn't really make sense because not only is it too early to start up this fight, but Black just connects easily like this because this type of sequence would be pretty bad for White. Yeah, Japan's expensive in more ways than one. But I have to go, I have to. So here, you can definitely choose to just play this knight's move and this would be fine. But at least according to my sense of direction, I think definitely the pincer is possible too. Usually I'm actually a bigger fan of just the knight's move, and you'll see a lot of high level players, like especially players much stronger than me as well, playing this knight's move a lot. But here, since I know that after I get the wall here and I get Sente, that I'd be able to extend to here, I know that that would make White end up in a crowded area. And that pincer that White played in the game is totally wrong. This one. Yeah, this is totally not a good move. It's too jealous. You shouldn't, you have to let your opponent get things. It's just, like, Go doesn't have to be a big mess. So anyway, as soon as it's like this, it's basically Black's gonna win the game. It's just, it's too painful. And even the distance to this stone is looking pretty good. I would have done this even if this stone were a bit closer. So yeah, I could have just enclosed the corner too. But I did this as a way of not only starting to develop this side, but also building towards the middle, which in turn makes this group weaker and adds more incentive to me for disconnecting down here. Because at the end of the day, this connection for White, although it's on the second line, it is a fair number of points in addition to the safety. When I played here, I would get to push here and then also turn here and make White connect that. So it's a difference of these 2 points and then a few points along here, plus the value of the safety. So if I can incentivize myself into disconnecting down here, it's something I'd like to play. So normally it's gonna go like this. Whoops. Normally, I have to go to original, then I have to go back, then I have to play review, because this tool sucks. So yeah, normally White's playing here, and if Black cuts, White can just play here. And something like this. But White is still okay. So usually Black's just playing here, and then when White plays here, Black hanes. And it looks like White can cut, but if White does, then Black can sacrifice just like this. And by the way, this connect is actually a better way of forcing instead of going down here. Because when you go down here and you make White play there, you still have a weakness here. But this one actually indirectly forces White to play here anyways. So regardless of if white pushes here or not, white still has to play here. And you can actually push here and then Atari, and this is still Sente because if white ignores, then you have this. So this is quite painful and it's not worth white trying to take that stone. So in order to avoid all that squeezing and maybe turn that cut later into a good move, white pushes here. Instead of cutting, white might want a pincer, but regardless, white should push here first. And when black hanes, because there's still the threat of this Atari and then this cut, white's not going to hane but still play an empty triangle. It's still better because if you play like this, you're just giving away loads of territory. So there's no point in helping black. So you just get out. Now you're fully out and you're not going to get squeezed. And black has two weaknesses to worry about. This one and this one. So that's a good example of how slow and steady can be a much better way. And an example where empty triangle is pretty good. This is a really classic and common middle game joseki, so you ought to memorize it. And then A, B, or A, B. If black's playing, black probably on this side, black probably plays something like this. And if white's playing on this side, white probably either cuts or plays the pincer or tenuki. Yeah, still at this point cut might not be that great, but eventually. Okay, so back to the game. This push was kind of nonsense because it doesn't change much in the corner and it gives me this connection now. This hane was pretty random. And as Cats Play Go pointed out, this is a moment where you could just go and take territory with this move. And this is a move that I pointed out as well, actually earlier. But then I decided that in this case, maybe it could be interesting to attack. Because I found a spot that might be really annoying for white. And it feels like building up around here actually has a lot of value. Such as helping the weakness here, building up this, and vastly increasing the value of cutting these off later, because they would become sort of part of the Moyo. But also it seems to be Sente in my opinion. So I'll be able to play this anyways. And up to here, I think it's pretty painful for white so far. White is not alive yet. So white has to keep running around. And then I fix my connection because I have another connection problem here because of this forcing move, which makes me go here. So I have to worry about this one. So instead of fixing this directly, I'd rather play this because it's more relevant to the fighting and it helps this stone. And then normally I would have had to play a tiger's mouth here and trot along like this, which isn't that great because it makes white stay ahead of you. It makes these stones in danger, and it's leaking, the territory is leaking from this side still. So I found a better move, which is this, and it has this deadly peep here. So I got a lot of eyes and points from that in Sente and making white go here. So that's extremely painful for white. And because of how few liberties white has, I knew that I could hane here regardless of that cut. And if white tries cutting and then moving out with these stones, I'd get another move additionally on this side, such as here and then there, and this whole thing would be in trouble. So it doesn't make sense for white to Atari here, so white just backed off. And this is the proper shape instead of making an empty triangle, because if black pushes through and Ataris and takes this stone, it'll have a horrible effect on these stones. So it's a fast and flexible minded move, and it has good follow-ups. So to avoid those good follow-ups by white, I went here because this is a vital point right now. It's also not good to like extend here and make white play the bamboo because After you do this, it might feel like a good exchange, but then you have two weaknesses here and here that you still haven't fixed, while white is now fixed. So this is a really nice move that black wouldn't have wanted white to get, but at least black is able to get the next move here. And at least hope for this one. So white took this, which is an enormous, enormous play in the local area. It obliterates all the territory here, and it creates future weaknesses for black around here. And if black got to play there, then it creates weaknesses in white, but it also makes a lot of territory and is a form of defense as well. So it's really, really big. But playing around here is big too. So it's still okay. Of course, I played this from time pressure, but something like this is kind of needed because white can start cutting through with attach here and then bamboo and then cut and then cut. One of those cuts is going to result in black getting captured somewhere. So I have to contain white first. Maybe I could have found a nicer or like a sexier move, but it does the job at least. And then because of how thick I am here now, I knew that I could go here and expect to kill anything that comes in here because I can just push them into this wall. So now when I play here, this is all points. And then because white only really has points like a little bit here, and these are very negligible. And because I have pretty decent points here and especially along here and a little bit down here, I know that all I need to do now is reduce around here. And because white is so far away from the other stone, but also that black invading is kind of unreasonable with all these stones, these white stones around, it makes a lot of sense in my opinion to just press here. And then I played here to create a ladder breaker or a ladder head. And I don't think white was aware of that. So I just started the ladder. And that pretty much sums up the important parts of the game. This group is never going to be in danger because I always have expansion or a move like this to make sure it's alive. And I always have this connection as well as this connection under, courtesy of white's push here. So yeah, black is all safe and ready to just finish off the game with a win. So now I'm probably going to start talking about Moyos. So you guys are free to ask questions, and in fact I encourage it because I want this to be a discussion. And I'm going to talk about Moyos and tell you how to play them, tell you how to play against them and with them. And as the other player who's playing against the Moyo, I want to show you how you can relax and realize that they really don't have as many points as you think. So let's see. I'm going to open KGS because their tools are just so much better than Taijam. And let me fix this. All right. I'm just gonna check OBS. All right, looks okay. And I guess I'll close Taijam now. All right, so first we can start talking about the Sanrensei opening, aka 3-star opening. So black plays here, white plays 2 conventional opening moves, and black plays 3-star points. So of course you could try to match black, but the more common way to play is just to approach one of the corners. And I'm mostly just going to cover what you guys mostly would expect or run into most of the time, and what you'd probably fear when you're playing white, which is probably a pincer around here, followed by you jumping into the corner, which some of you are probably afraid to do this because you think that the Moyo is going to be too big. And first we'll look at the classic variations that go like this. So please go ahead and stop me with questions, because that's what this is going to be for. So the thing about this is that even if white continues in both on both sides like this is actually still pretty fine for white. If you wanted to reduce this area now, you could even choose a move like this that's just on the outskirts. And if something like this happened, you can expect most higher level players to prefer white here. And the reason is, suppose that we put it like this, and we made a move like this with white. And keeping in mind the fact that stuff like this is white's privilege, because if white times it correctly, then black's going to want to defend the Moyo. So usually white's going to get these. R16. How do you reduce or invade near R16? Well, I think we're showing that right now, but N10 would probably be too far into the Moyo, yeah. Oh, okay, how do you invade around here? Okay, I'll show that after. O10. So you can go deeper than this, but the thing is that you're actually just going to give black a much better attack on you, and then black's going to easily be able to make up more than the points you reduced simply by attacking you. So we'll get into that. So just to finish off this example, if we count this up, we see that this is like 6 times 9, so like 50. My brain is dead. Someone help me. 6 times 9. 54. Right? So 53. So this is basically like 50 points. Yeah. I don't know. I was having a moment there where my brain stopped working with simple multiplication. Yeah, this is like 50 to 55 points basically. And white has everything else. So white has like 8 or more points in this corner and in this corner. And if you combine that with Komi, that's already a combined total of over 20. So the thing is, half of this entire Moyo is already made up for by this corner, and Komi. That should be a little bit eye-opening, right? Because now all the rest of this for white only needs to make up for like 20 to 30 points. Now you guys should already all be agreeing about white being not bad here. So this thing just looks visually deceiving, but actually the whole rest of the board is pretty much controlled by white. And every fight that happens on the rest of the board, even though black can live in all these places, but every fight that happens in this side, this corner, this side, this corner, this area, white, if played correctly, is going to get a better result than black. So you take an even result in each place, you make it better for white, and whatever that difference in points is for each side, you multiply that by however many fights you're going to have in this side of the board. So like if white got a 5-point, if white got a 10-point better result in each spot, then that would already be at least 30 or 40 points. So, and now let's look at some of your questions. So the thing is that you can go deeper and maybe you can survive, but the opponents, the amount that you suffer is going to be related to, of course, partially your own skills, but also how well your opponent can attack. So how good they are at attacking. So when you're developing your Go, you always want to assume that your opponent or that your future opponent in a situation like this is really strong, right? You're trying to develop your Go so that you can defeat strong players. You want to be a strong player. So you have to assume then that eventually the person on the other side of this playing black is going to be someone one day who is really good at attacking. And then when you play a move like this or deeper, you're going to get attacked badly enough that however many points you reduced, black's going to make up for that and more. Does that make sense? And the thing is that most of these points, like a lot of these points are still going to be kept by black. You can't erase all of it, right? If you invaded this part would become solid. If you invaded this part would become solid. If you invade here, then all of this might become solid. So, but now you have to put up with like a whole ton of attacking moves. So the only reason why moves like this succeed a lot in the Q levels and lower down levels is because things just go wrong. But when it comes to like developing your sense of things and your style and your Go concepts and how you play, you have to assume, that both players would play really well. So the thing is, you really don't need to go that deep. And of course, there's other things you can do, like you can go here to frustrate this a little bit for black, or you can choose something else. Like now that you've played and gotten a corner here, maybe even playing here is okay, because after a Joseki like this, at least you're gonna still have moves like A and B left over. And now to answer another question. Can you live around here? Well, yes, you can. Because in order to attack, black needs to play either this kick or something like this. And let me just say, this is very hard to live. You need a lot of skills, but you can do it. And I'm not saying I'm like that I have all those skills necessarily, but I played against an opponent once at a Go club where because I knew, like, because of how convinced he seemed that like things are so killable and that I can't invade, I invaded here just to prove that wrong. And what happened was, by trying to absolutely kill my invasion, this group here ended up dying. So I ended up just getting this big white formation here that surrounded black, and it was pretty interesting. So, but yeah, so okay, black plays here, and now you have to move out, right? So let's say you play something like this. The thing to note that is you have like things like this that actually threaten cutting black. And you might even be able to play this one right away. So just to simplify the example, and I'll show a few examples, but let's say black had to respond. Now, white would be able to move out in some manner. And already we can see that this is slowly but surely becoming harder and harder to attack. If black plays here, then white can move out with something like this. And now it's even harder to kill white. You will get to attack, but you probably won't get to kill everything. If black plays here, then there's always this kind of stuff to work with for white, but white wouldn't do it right away. White would wait until its utility. So white would wait and see what kind of complications form around here. And then when they do, then these types of moves could become resources to help that situation. Or that situation could help white break out on this side. So you just wait. You just wait. And you don't give free information to black by doing this side first. Because once black knows how this part has settled, he can have an educated guess of how to continue over here. So it's better to go this way first. So white would come out like this. Now black has to deal with the weakness of around here and also these stones here. Good night, Neo Trikutani. Thanks for coming. So yeah, long story short, you can live in here, but I don't even recommend it because usually you'll lose something if black plays well. Like you might lose this stone or you might lose this stone. Or you might just suffer so many attacking moves that it's just not worth it in the end. Because this is so early in the game. This is so early in the game that if you imagine that black had around 50 points total potential, then you also have to keep in mind that black is still able, if he chooses, to keep at least 20 or more on this side. So what you're erasing is like 20 to 25 at most. And not only is black going to get Sente from all like after this attack, which is going to be worth at least, you know, like more than 10 points or at least, you know, a significant number of points. But he's also going to gain a whole bunch of attacking moves that each have some kind of value. And those attacking moves don't have to get him territory right away. They just need to get him things. And what do I mean by things? I mean, when someone is being attacked, they are extremely restricted in how they can respond, right? They're only able to respond with the moves that lead them to safety or getting eyes or something like this. So instead of having the option of like 10, 20 moves to choose from, they have like 2, 3 moves to choose from. Stuff like this. But the person attacking can do anything they want. So what this means is with every one move exchange, like 1 for 1, usually the attacker is going to profit by at least like 1 point or something. And we're not strictly talking about points. We might be talking about influence. Like if black's chasing white, black might just be getting stones in the center. So it doesn't matter because I'm talking about points in like converted value. So maybe the attack gets actual points. Maybe the attack is sometimes just getting influence. But the total sum of what they get out of the attack is easily, if done right, going to surpass the amount that you erased. Plus they get Sente, which is a bunch of points on top of that. So yeah, that's why if you're playing well, then you don't need to invade. And if they're playing well, then they can attack your invasion really well. So I'm going to end that part there and just leave you with the fact that this result is not bad for white. And plus, you can make it interesting. Like you can push here and play this Joseki where black cuts and then plays this. And after you take and black Ataris and you take, black has to fix something. So the thing is though, if black fixes this, then you have this cut, which you don't have to do it right now, but this could even count as a way to reduce this, because if black just pushes along like this, black's probably giving you way too many points over here. Don't get confused by this. This is not that many points, and this is nowhere near even black's territory yet. That's the problem with the center. So, but this is quickly going to become real cash. So this is not a good way to play for black. And that means black would be playing other things like Atarying this way. But then when you come out here, that's going to end up reducing the scale eventually of this Moyo. So that's how this cut could actually count as reducing black. On the other hand, if black plays this one, there's some other interesting things you can do. Like, as I stated before, you can also just leave this thing alone. And think of it from black's point of view. If you were black, wouldn't you be paranoid all game about white coming in? So just remember that the grass is always greener on the other side. We have this peep. And like if black tries to counter us, then we have this cut that combines with this to give black a bad result. So black actually can't really resist here usually, because like regardless of what order you do it in, like you might do it like this, for example. Because if black took these two, then you'd be playing like that. And this would be almost game over for black as well. But this isn't maybe the best order of moves, but no matter how you do it, it's going to be good for white. So usually black just connects here. And another thing here is that there is something really interesting white can do. And this is something that you might find pretty cool, so you might want to memorize this. If you place here, right, not only are you threatening to run out into the center, and you have access to this peep here if you really need it, but You're also threatening to extend here, right? You're threatening to get eyes along here, and this might end up living. So black might be playing here, right? And then it's like, hey, my invasion as white looks so deep. What am I even doing? Plus, I'm only erasing like 15 points or something. This is not worth it. Well, you have a special sequence you can do here. You can actually hane, and instead of connecting, you can actually cut right away here. So the interesting thing here is that if black tries to take this, then you can squeeze and capture all the black stones. Okay. What happens if black Atari is here? If black Atari is here, there's like we can play here. And then after this, black's in some trouble. Of course, black can connect, and now we have nothing to do because if we connect here, then he takes here and vice versa. So what we actually do there is double Atari. And then when black takes, we just connect under. Now you can see that this whole area got reduced, right? Black might play here because this would be pointless for black. And there's this threat. So black would block here, but then we can Atari here and just Tanuki now. And we already reduced this area. So what does white play now? Anything. Just play anything. Maybe this makes sense because it's helping against black's influence and it's kind of symmetrical, but any good move like this or a corner enclosure, especially on this bigger side, would be good enough now. And locally speaking, you can continue like that. This also helps with this Ko situation because now when black takes here, if you need to, you can always just fix like that. But this probably wouldn't be big enough at this point, but it will be pretty big soon. So you just play anything, and then if black starts doing things like that, you just start ignoring him because the thing is, this is another important concept and like way of thinking to remember for many types of situations, which is that suppose that black plays here, you play something else, black plays here, and you play something else, and then black plays here. The best that black can possibly get here is returning things to their original state, because even though black is capturing some stones, black already has a whole bunch of his own stones put in here. So in other words, the best that black can do is return things to par or like worse than par. And this is not worth it for black because that's like saying that after white plays here, in order to play something like this, black needs to also pass twice, right? So for that reason, after all this stuff happened, neither player should continue here. Even if white thinks this is Sente, which it kind of isn't right now at all, it's too early. But even if it were Sente, the thing is that if black's not going to play somewhere, then you don't need to play it yet either because you're not going to lose it. But when you play here, despite that, you're risking black going and playing a much better move somewhere. And, you know, you get to miss out and you get to, it's not good. So, but this is a really cool reduction, right? And you actually finish in Sente as white. And one more sequence is that when white goes here, black can Atari here, right? This time if white connects, black can take and there's no squeeze. But in this moment, we can actually play this. And if black takes, then we get the same nice result. But this is the best way for black to play because if black goes down, well, at least black has the option of fighting this Ko, because now white actually has to fight Ko. Like if white Atari's here, black just connects and white's not doing anything good. Of course, connecting this in the opening would be way too small. It's better to let them die. But this whole result is a collapse by white, so white has to turn this into a ko. The nice thing is that this ko is really all in for black, and white does not stand to lose very much at all. This whole group here is alive already, so even losing this stone and all these stones is not much of a loss for us at all. So all white needs to do is just play 2 moves elsewhere or some co-threats. Like play here, for example. That would be fantastic. Because if you remember the original shape of this black, then you know that even though there's some dead white stones in here, there's also a bunch of black stones which are -1, -1, -1 on black's territory. So despite how destroyed it looks, this is actually good for white too. But of course, you wouldn't normally invade this early, so usually you will have some better or more interesting co-threats. Well, now you know about this. So this is something that you should memorize because it's really fun to do it against your opponent, and it's just a really good classic bit of knowledge to know about. So that means black might want to play this like this. This is a pretty strong and good way to respond. But of course it risks like this thing running around and living. But then if, just like I was saying before with the Sanrense, if white did this really early, like right now, this is actually good for black probably because like black, there's so much left of the board to develop, so black is not really all in on having just this big territory. So all black needs to do is profit well from attacking, get really thick from attacking too, and just have power and advantage over white for the rest of the game because of how strong this area is, and that strength emanating everywhere on the board. So this is cool to know, but you don't want to do it early. But it's just another example of how like you give black a Moyo like this and you don't really need to worry about it. You peep here and then you play something else and just relax. It's not that much territory, it just looks like it is. You just gotta remember how much you have, and remember that Komi is not small. In fact, Komi is like at least as big as this whole corner here, and this corner, like one of those corners. So it's, you kind of have 3 corners basically if you count Komi as a corner, plus you have these 2 corners, and if these 2 become your territory, then it's like you have 5 corners, plus a side. So yeah. Now I'd like to move on to another Moyo opening. I'll just add though, for anyone who doesn't know, that when white invades here, you should not block this way because that would be a poor usage of this stone. After this Joseki is played out, locally, in an isolated sense, there's nothing wrong with this, but we don't want any of our stones to end up inefficient, and this stone is not in the best place because it's leaking under, and it's just not in the best place because the center is way too wide, and we should, and so you might think that, oh, you know, we play here now and the center looks like it's almost ours, but actually the center is so wide that even under these conditions, you should not be going after the center right now. You should be building sides and corners and expand slowly toward the center. So this is the wrong direction. Whenever you have a stone right in the middle of the side, especially like precisely in the middle, you want to block this other way. In the previous Joseki, what about when black chooses not to hane over the top of 2 stones, but to disconnect them? Oh, I know what you mean. I think you mean like this. Do you mean like this? The thing about this is that after you extend, it's a bit troubling for black to choose the next move. Like if black plays here, then black has an invasion, really strong invasion points around here. So that means one thing you could do is just run this way and become safe and then invade thereafter. Yeah, that's correct. It's a fighting sequence that depends on what the outside looks like. And usually at this early stage, it's not going to be a good idea for black. And plus white has this extra forcing move if he needs it too, which would probably prompt this move, and then white can get the first move over here. And again, right, this is a big territory, but it's just one territory. And white has a corner, Komi, 2 other corners, and the first move in this fight. So this is a pretty good result for white. And then if you try to play here, the thing is that there's actually a very interesting weakness in this shape. So for example, suppose that you already made this group safe, or if it was correct in this case to treat it lightly, you can actually play here. The only way for safety, the only main way for safety for these stones is to respond here. But then white can actually play here. In order to have enough territory to really head towards a good result, black would want to disconnect here. But now you can actually cut. And if black takes, then there's a squeeze happening here. And the result is quite bad for black. In fact, even if this black weren't going to die, this incursion would still be extremely horrible for black. And then you'd want to read out, like, can you play here? Are you going to die here if you play here? So you play here, black extends, you hane, black makes an eye, and it looks like this is, well, this is going to be either a seki or a ko, because next you have to extend down, and then black can Atari here, and then you can Atari black, and then oh, actually, if black plays Atari right away, then you can just connect and black would die. But the way it would really go is, so you play here, black plays here, and then when you extend, black can just exchange this, and now it's either a seki if you get time to play here, or more likely it's a ko where black plays here first and plays like that. So this would be bad for white probably, so which means that we would just block here. But this is amazingly good for white, and even trying to make this live now is like worse than dying. So no reason to even look at this anymore. You just keep going along as white, and it's amazing for you. So yeah, this shape has an interesting weakness. If your opponent neglects to cut here and simply hanes here, white just plays here to fix the problem, and this becomes a slightly preferable result for white, because not only was white, so it's kind of like we had the normal joseki like this, but the difference is that we have this push exchanged here, and we have this really bad push exchanged by black. And then it's even better for white, because since that push was exchanged, it's also like we knew that, and then we got to take the stone away and place it here. So it's doubly bad for black, because black loses an important liberty by pushing here, and then white, instead of having a stone here, gets to have a stone here. And this stone is only good if that exchange was already made. Like in the normal joseki, it's not good for white to play here, because like for example, now when black plays here, the next moves are, because of white's liberties, are going to be all sente. And even in terms of this block, now there's a weakness left over here, just for your awareness. So that's why in this joseki we usually play here. It's just a fancy version of playing here actually, because, well, if we play here, black won't play the knight's move. Black will actually make more liberties by pushing along here, because when white plays this response, black actually loses a liberty compared to white playing this. So if white plays here, then black pushes here. And if white plays here, then black just plays a double knight's move, since there's plenty of liberties here. That one liberty loss is big because it affects the fighting that can happen around here. and the ability to eventually cut if there's a proper setup. And what this move offers us is it allows us to go here if we really needed it. Like if black built up a big territory around here, then this would allow us to leak in really well and maybe even cross-cut. And it also allows us to get an emergency eye if we need one. So that's something that it has over this move, which in some, like you might be able to play like this, or at least like this. But then there's cases also where depending on the outside, we'd only be able to go like this. So this could be trouble for us if, for example, we were fighting around here and then trying to live, we had to give black a stone here. And then we made 2 eyes here, but then black got this move. We would be like, you know, about to die here. So yeah. That's basically the reason why this is the Joseki. So now I'm going to move on to the Kobayashi Fuseki, the Kobayashi opening. Although I think there might be 2 openings that have the name Kobayashi, but I'm going to go with the most famous one. And this happens when black plays a 4-4, white plays a 4-4, and then black orients his second corner next to white's 4-4 in this way. So it's kind of like the 3-4 point is looking under the white stone by being on a lower line. Then white takes another corner and black approaches here. White responds, and well, there's another variation by playing here, but the basic one is here. So black is building up a Moyo along here, and if white doesn't play around here, then black will form some type of Chinese opening. And the Chinese opening, which we'll talk about next, is one that really wants to develop here, because this placement, which is slightly close to the corner and not all the way over here, is kind of a trap that invites white in only to get a really strong attack on white due to white's lacking space. So this part's a trap, and for that reason, white's not going to come in here very soon. That's why when black just plays the Chinese opening, since black knows white doesn't want to come around here very soon, since the result's going to be really inferior, white just leaves it alone and plays elsewhere. And black's next aim is to develop on this adjacent side because it forms a 2-dimensional framework. And then since black knows that white doesn't want to come around here, black can focus on developing this part of it. So the Chinese opening aims to extend over to here. That's like move 4 of the Chinese opening. Or approach first and then play here. But same thing. The Kobayashi opening is doing this first. So instead of trying to build along here and then eventually expand to here, this one is really just trying to make a nice territory here, because this one, with this, black knows that white's going to play around here. So something really important to know that most players don't know, and even some lower down players don't know, is that whenever you see a 3-4 point like this, and then they have a stone in this vicinity on the 3rd or 4th line, usually the correct way to approach is far. And here's the reason, actually. This is a bit of a tangent here, but this is really useful knowledge, actually, I would say, is if white approaches low here, the classic punishment here, when there's a black stone around here, is to approach, to pincer tightly here. White will usually jump up like this. And there's punishments for every other maneuver by white, but this is the easiest example. When black plays here, first of all, normally white has a Joseki choice where, for example, let's say it's just like this. Normally white has a Joseki change where white can actually play here and switch sides. Black plays here, white plays here. And if black extends, just as one variation as an example, now white hanes. And after this, white connects and, black connects and white jumps to here, developing a position around here. And then since black's not alive yet, black takes the corner like this. And then since this threatens to connect under, white goes like this, because if white goes down, then this shape doesn't look very good and it's far from having two eyes. So white bumps like this because it's also really good for forming some strong eye shape, and there's even potential for forming an eye down here. So then black extends, and that's the end of this joseki. But then you see that in our variation, with the Kobayashi opening, after this, white already doesn't have this option anymore because there's a stone here and this would be unreasonable because of this. So that's already one disadvantage of white choosing this when there's a stone there. Another is that whenever you have a high stone coming up like this, usually you would like to extend from it after so that it doesn't just have a weak underbelly around here where white could extend. But since we already have a stone here, we can see the synergy between these two stones. So yeah, and then if white approaches high, the classic punishment here is the two-space high pincer. If white plays this way, then even if we just do this, our stone here already ends up in the perfect place. If we play, for example, a joseki like this, this is just pretty much where we'd want it. And then if white plays the jump, then we'll go along like normal with a one space, the thicker choice. And the way that white plays in this joseki is white needs to build up enough strength with this group, albeit giving away territory to black on the bottom, so that white can end up pincering the pincer. So since white's giving away territory down here more and more, like this, white needs a way to make up for that, right? White can't just let black have a bunch of points and then get absolutely nothing, right? So white builds up strength with a few exchanges along here, and then pincers around here. So white is aiming to eventually make territory indirectly from having gotten these stones along here. So for example, white might attack this black group and then maybe establish a position here. And then if this black group remains weak, then that's another plus as well. But here we can see, first of all, that this black stone is actually helping to put more pressure on white, whereas normally in this joseki, there isn't a black stone here. So white's able to easily pincer here and get a decent fight out of it. But here, the fight's already becoming worse for white down the line because of the help of this stone for black, especially since it's on the fourth line. But to make matters worse, since there's a stone there, black can actually peep here instead of playing here in gote. Even though this shape has a lot of bad agi for black and the territory is very insecure around here, exploiting this for white would only result in just white living down here somewhere. It wouldn't actually put any of these black groups in grave danger, so it's actually not relevant to the fight right now. And so since this fight is a much more important than whether this is solid territory, and if white comes in here, then black's going to cut white off. So the important point is the state of this white group. So that's why black can actually play this exchange and then switch to this side. Now, white loses his chance to pincer the pincer, if that makes sense. And you can see that white is just a running stick now. So white no longer has any way to get a good result here. White can definitely settle and live easily. But if white doesn't, then black will get future attacking profit. And if white does, it's going to be good for black anyways. And so you can see that this only happened because of that stone. Because if we took that stone away, this would actually be a bad move by black because it's making white thick and it's not really making black that much stronger. And white has a lot of space around here. And then white can come down and start surrounding this area. So If it were this case, without that stone, then instead of making this exchange, black would either extend here or extend here. And then white would have time to pincer here, which would be maybe even for both though. But the point is that the stone here is making this result favorable for black. So black pincers here in peeps here in Sente, and then takes away white's pincer by playing it himself and develops a position on this side. So now moving away from that tangent, that is why we do the far approach. And this is not just for the Kobayashi opening. This is for all situations when you have a 3-4 point and then a extension around here on the same side. So this is the reasonable move. Now how does black handle this? Black has 3 main moves to handle this. A, B, and C. So first let's look at C. This is not played so often, especially when there's a stone around here, because if this Joseki happens, which is something that you can memorize, and it's a pretty important one to know also. Hey, Root Panda. So if this Joseki happens, we can see that white's getting the corner and coming into the side. So this stone is now misplaced because these were trying to help black's corner build a framework. But in this case, this is all disrupted and it's really hard to make territory around here now. So these are misplaced because now if black could move his stones around, black would want to move this into maybe a slide here. Something that's more based on territory and security, or just take it somewhere else on the board. So this would be a failure by black because the direction is wrong. Black was supposed to be developing this side after he played a stone there, but instead he developed this side. Another choice by black would be to revert this to a 4-4 Joseki by playing here, making white play there, and then extending and playing like this. And this would be fine for both. Although it does kind of defeat the purpose of playing Kobayashi. Now, if black plays this move, this is the most peaceful and still really good. So it's a common choice. The classic response by white would be to extend here. And you can do it, but it's not maybe the most trendy right now. Black will naturally play a checking extension. In the opening, you always want to play the most open area, the most spacious area, because regardless of whether it's your opponent's domain or yours, it's the place with the most future moves possible. So, but then sometimes you can play a crowded area if you have enough justification. Like here, normally we want to play on the top. It's the most open. But because this move both takes territory and puts pressure on these stones, and because it has nice follow-ups where if white ignores, then we can start doing things like this and building up this area while putting even more pressure on these stones. Because it has all those extra benefits and it's a very multi-purpose move, it makes up for the fact that it's playing on a crowded side. So you'll see this with a lot of moves in the opening too. So black plays here, and then white is going to jump on one side or the other. Usually white jumps here because it's threatening to close off the corner for black and ruin black's overall formation here. So one thing black often does here, which, you know, for most of you, depending on your level, it's not really mandatory to remember. You could just play something like this and it'll be okay. But if you can remember, you should peep here. And this is useful because if white connects here, then now this is even thicker, so you need to fix this area even more. So you would play here, and white can't invade around here because it'll just die. Well, maybe there could be like a ko or something, but yeah, or you could play something like this, which might actually kill white better than the other sequence. So like if white plays here, then you just kill it like that. If white plays here, then white can't really live. So you get the idea. But regardless, basically, it's a pretty secure area. It's very hard to make life inside here. So basically, after this peep, the disadvantage of this peep is that it makes white thicker on this side, and the advantage is that it gives some agi for black on this side. So now that you've made white really thick here, it makes sense to nullify that at the same time as fixing your territory by playing here. Because now white has no chance to make use of that thickness. And then white usually fixes here, and black can play something like this. And then since there's an enclosure here, which increases the value of moves around here because it could kind of form a box with it. So white usually extends around here or something along this side since it's also the most open side. So yeah, that's how this usually goes. And if white neglects to add a move, then this is how you can continue. Combined with this exchange here, this is a move that can't be captured. So white's normal way of connecting up is to play here. Because if you try to like push through, for example, you're just going to hurt yourself. R14. Well, if white gets R14, then you have a number of choices, but that's not going to change the fact that you have this. So how to handle this? Well, well, you start by thinking about it. So I would, if it's me, I would maybe consider this kick. And I would consider this attach. And I would consider just backing off as well. I don't think I would jump because it just, white will just continue here, and this jump doesn't really affect this area too much. Because this is still the move we probably want to play. Maybe you can actually go here directly. White has enough problems over here that you might be able to just leave this place alone for now. So this is something I would also think about. Just exploit this right away and let white do whatever he wants, because this can't really connect to this side, so white's kind of just making another weak group right now. Yeah, so I don't know the exact definitive answer, but for me, I would think about just doing this anyways. Or I would at least think about kicking, even though there's a good chance it might not be good. And I would think about a peaceful response. Because that's a hard stone to capture anyways. And at some point it might become light. If you kick, then you go here for fourth line extra pressure. And then the question is like, how badly can white follow up here? So it doesn't seem so easy to capture this one stone. So this might be a playable sequence. I think I might choose this one. So yeah, basically the follow-up of white not jumping here is this move. And you can see that it completely gouges out white's eye space while also making a few points and threatening to connect there too. So on the other hand, if white fixes in this way, now black's not going to have that special Tasuji, but what black does have is the ability to also Tenuki. So fixing here or just playing along this side somewhere. I wouldn't really play in the middle because, especially with this stone slightly closer to the corner, the 3-3 invasion would be really good. Because at the end, one or more of our stones will end up inefficient as black. So I would be thinking about this one, or approaching here. I won't really think of anything else. I'm still thinking about that on Saturday because I'm kind of giving up a lot if I do that. Like, I'm giving up. I have a lot of housework to do before the other Alex returns and moves in, and I have also Go lessons that I would have to cancel on Saturday. So I'm calling it 50-50 for now that I'm going. But I guess I better decide soon. So I'll probably decide by like late tomorrow or something, or maybe even tonight. Yeah, so the interesting thing about this is that it's very complicated. It's kind of a Dan level thing here. I would call it, but the reason why black doesn't need to play here now is because there is some agi with this cut. Like even though black's not going to cut right away because it's just really heavy and crude. Like if black tries to go here, then black's just damaging his other area and not really accomplishing anything. And if black tries to cut, then there's either a ladder or just a simple squeeze. So it's not really good for black to do anything here right now. But when white tries to punish you for playing away, let's say play here, you have ways of using that in your way of dealing with this. Like suppose you played here, but now if white connected, you'd have this and it would start working really well together. If white Atari's here, then when you descend here, white still has to fix here. But then after that, it's a disaster for white, as you can see. So like white's just making weak groups and all sorts of weaknesses. And that ends up not really being worth just coming in here. The board's open after all. So there are interesting Tesujis and of sorts that you can make use of when white tries to come all the way in here despite that weakness. So for that reason, black doesn't always fix here when white defended that way. I think most black would usually play around here, or at least here. It's very different from this one where you do have time to go here because you're preventing a really painful move against you that white can play around here. And also you're making extra threat of playing this black move to attack. So this would add pressure too to the weak white group. Okay, so then another version of this Kobayashi variation is where white goes all the way to here. And this looks counterintuitive because obviously black can strike here and be annoying, and black probably should, usually, regardless of whether it's not bad for white or whether it is bad for white. Black usually should attack white's underbelly with this move. Now white's way of responding is usually here because it threatens to surround you. So usually you would respond. And then this shape's actually pretty light. So often white just tanukis here and play maybe something like this. You can lose territory here, but that's not really the most important thing all the time. Because you can just, like, the whole board has places to make territory. So just because you invested some stones doesn't always mean those stones have to get you territory. And this is a pretty crowded area, so black might not play here right now either. And when you do finally play, one move you could play is like something like this, for example. And this would give you a solid 10 points or so, while also undercutting black's area. Okay, now the final Kobayashi thing to look at is this move, which is strictly for making a Moyo out of this and making it, building up its potential. So white's normal response is to play here. And then you can imagine black just pushing, right? Although this isn't maybe so common because you're kind of pushing from behind. And it's a little bit all in on this area. Even after you play around here, white probably would respond. Like I would probably play this. But then at least there's always this invasion. And even after you play here, it doesn't mean that this is not invadable. It's just getting harder. But you're also giving white a lot. So white's territory along with Komi as well, you know, it might just be okay to give black all of this. So for those of you who have trouble with these kind of openings when you're playing against it, try just calming down and just continuing the game normally without just jumping inside. Whereas if you're the type that's really afraid to invade things, try invading. Play here, for example, and then if black doesn't respond, then try invading around here. Because it's really hard too for black to try to kill white. So probably for starters, the Joseki you guys would want to memorize for this is this pincer actually. When white pushes out, black just makes a bamboo. And if white just keeps coming out, then this move is actually pretty strong. And then after that, you can probably just fix this around here, like here or maybe here. And then white's basically under attack. And you have prospects to make points here too, which make up for you losing a bit in the corner. So actually normally after this, what white usually plays is this, because it's a little bit of a vital point. And then you might think of responding here, but then you're letting white destroy all your potential, and you're not really going to get much of an attack on this white group. It already has like an eye and is completely out, and this black group is weak, and this part is weak too, so this would not be a good way for black to play. You're kind of blocking off territory that doesn't exist. So instead, you just stick to your original plan and Hane here. And luckily, if white tries to Hane back, this cut kind of makes white collapse because of that Atari that you have if you need it, such as if white tries to ladder you here. So instead, white usually attaches here. And then you go here and white plays here. White could play here, but then it gives this extra forcing move. And this actually does make a difference later, like after this, if white tries to live around here. This extra stone actually can make a difference. So that's part of why white actually, instead of playing that, just plays it like this. And you can expect that if black plays here, it's actually a pretty bad move by black, because it's just crawling kind of horribly. So instead, black will force here and make you play there. And then black's kind of inclined to play here, and that's pretty much that. So that's pretty much how this goes. And then you can expect white to probably play along this side, just like with that other similar variation I showed. Usually whenever there's a corner enclosure, the adjacent side is a big place to play on for both players. So now you might be interested in how white might invade here, right? So even supposing that, that this is all just built up around here, white can actually invade here, and this is pretty cool. Black has to go here in order to try to kill, and white should play lightly. And the reason for this too, additionally, is that if black tries to connect like this, it's not good, because then this cut here for white is going to start working. So like imagine that that black just connects, but then now you can cut. So that's not good for black. So black's not going to do that. Black has to just attack like this. And then as white, you might be afraid. Like if you try to push out, there's things black can do to make things troublesome for you. Or you might be afraid of getting cut. But there's something interesting here. You can actually exchange this one and then play this knight's move. And it looks like it gets cut, but there's something cool. If black pushes and cuts, you can take this moment to Atari here, which is definitely sente. And then you sacrifice like this. And even this is still sente for white because of a liberty shortage for black, where black can't play here. So after this, black has to keep responding. And then all of this black you see here, all dead. Because you can just do a number of things. You can cut here, or you can just connect here, or you can just play this. Some of those will be better than others, but basically you pretty much wreck this whole area. In fact, even if black managed to just barely find a way to live here, which usually he won't, but it could depend on liberties and some things. Like you probably should connect this one, for example. But even if black were to make life, the incursion you did here and having Sente and everything, it's probably still fine for you. Because even though you have all these dead stones here, black also has all these -1 moves, right? But actually, I think that these black are all dead. If it's like this, for example, then you can kill it just by simply reducing the space like this. And yeah, this life and death is maybe not so simple, but you know, it's theoretical. Like theoretically, if you know what to do, then this is dead. And that's how you should play, right? Because if you fail to kill it, you just review that and fix that. So yeah, that's a pretty cool sacrifice sequence, right? And then if they peep here first and you connect, then of course when black cuts here, white's all dead. However, the moment that they peep here, once again, you can exchange this, or you can even do it at this moment. And when they peep here, instead of connecting here, you can actually connect this one. And if they cut, then you can simply Atari this way. And you're also setting up for a cut there. And you can kind of see how this is going to go. Yeah. In fact, even if you just cut here now, that's still a good result. So yeah. And then if they try to connect like this, it doesn't work because after this, you can Atari here, and then Atari all the way down, and then cut, which also fixes your shape. So that's how you invade the Kobayashi, and that generally just is a reality. And that's maybe why the Kobayashi isn't so popular with the pros. And that's the same thing with the Sanran-sei. And so Chinese opening is still good. Variants of the Chinese are still good. But the Kobayashi, although it's fine, especially for amateurs, but Kobayashi and Sanran-sei, it's pretty easy to live inside them if you really want to. So it's a bit more nerve-wracking to play with them. But of course, you can always play another variation of the Kobayashi. Like you can just take the corner, and there's nothing wrong with this. It's not passive or anything. Now finally, let's talk a little bit about the Chinese opening. So Chinese opening starts like this. You might see in modern games that sometimes they choose to approach here and then play here. The reason for that is that one of the best moves against the Chinese opening is simply enclosing this corner. Because we know that since this is a trap that wants to invite white in, where white will actually suffer if they come in too early because it'll end up too efficient for black. White knows that black wants to develop on this adjacent side here to form a two-dimensional framework. So this move focuses on corner territory while also making that side worse. So like if black plays here, you can see that it's preemptively reduced already with, even after things get played out, there's another reduction like this. So it means that now a move like this doesn't really have as much territory as it could have. So white doesn't really need to worry about this side. White might, however, play here now because black has invested 3 whole stones. So now it's okay to incur a poor result here to reduce this area because this thing is still going to be undercut by that stone. And it's already 3 against 1. So it's more justifiable for white to get a bad result here on purpose when it's 3 against 1 as opposed to just 2 against 1 and getting the same bad result. For example, if white comes in right away and black plays here, then white has to play something like this. And if we follow a classic variation, just as an example, a rough template example, now you see you know, black gets good area here, got a little bit thicker here from white doing all that, and white just barely lives here. And black has Sente too. Black doesn't have to put it here. On the other hand, when we have an additional black stone, which means it becomes 3 against 1 instead of 2 against 1, white's going to get the same result. So, and the difference here is that now black doesn't have the choice of where to exactly place this stone. It's already placed. So black would like to pick this up and maybe move it onto the third line at least, or play somewhere else, but he can't. So when your opponent has invested even more, like more and more into something, then the value of, sometimes the value of reducing it, of going in can actually go up, because the efficiency for them goes down if the result for them from having like X stones versus your 1 stone would be similar to them having like X plus 1 stones versus your 1 stone. If they don't get much from that 1 extra stone in the result, then it's not good for them compared to the other way. So that's why against the Chinese opening, usually you wait until black has invested 1 more stone before you come in. But usually you do come in at that point, because if black gets this move and this move, then it's a pretty good combination actually. But something also to know about the Chinese opening is that this is not a good move for black. This is actually inefficient, because now black, it's like black put the third move here and then the next move here. It's actually pretty slow, and there's still a weakness, not there. There's still a weakness here. So, you know, even if we had it like this, and then we played here, this is still a little bit slow, because there's a whole board out there. So black's playing 2 moves on a side that's getting more and more crowded, and doesn't really have much future potential, because it's all just been solidified already. So instead, at that rate, black would rather just play like this, and then now black won't want to play another move here. Black will want to get all around the board, like with another move here, or at least something over here. So if you're going to just like solidify your territory quickly like that and just focus on territory right away, you might as well use as few moves as possible and then keep taking other parts of the board. So the goal of the Chinese opening is absolutely not to play a move like this. The only time you play a move like this is if like white waited way too long to do anything about this, or if white did something like this and sort of incentivized you. Now it's a natural move to play here, and it's good. You still have a weakness in here, but white has a weakness around here, so it's fine. And you have Sente as black. So after this, you'd probably approach here, because since white has a stone on the side here next to the 4-4, then next a move like this for white is really powerful, because it makes a big difference in the fighting around here now. So the Chinese opening. The Chinese opening is just another Moyo kind of potential Moyo opening to not freak out about when you're facing it. So one way is to simply play here, and then once they come around here, you can just do this and play out this kind of sequence. And even though you're settling very small, it's fine, because black has a lot of investment already. So you can think of it mostly as a reduction, not as a white trying to get a lot of points. Okay, and if black plays like this, then this wouldn't be good for white, because if white plays here, because then now when black plays here, white's kind of heavier and doesn't have very much room to extend. And this is actually the same as if white had have approached low and black kicks, which makes sense, and then plays here. And fourth line is good for attacking, so you wouldn't want to play on the third line with black. You don't care about this weakness right now. It's not relevant yet. So that's why low approach is usually not good against the Chinese opening. And also why after the high approach, if black plays here, you wouldn't want to come down here. Mind you, with new AlphaGo and AlphaGo Zero stuff, I know that like Michael Redmond has been showing AlphaGo doing some crazy sequences with white with approaching low here, where it's actually not bad for white. But first of all, it's very hard to mimic AlphaGo, and it's also a really crazy sequence with like every single move being a Tsuji, including stuff like this. And it's also situational too. It's based on the whole board. So in general, you should still follow the conventional wisdom, or the classical wisdom, I'll call it, to not approach low in the Chinese opening. There are special cases, but you're almost always going to want to approach high. So when they go here, since this is not a good move, one way of playing lightly here is to play here. It might seem really slow, and it might seem like, okay, we're going to play lightly. Why don't we just play something like this? But when you play like this, although it might be okay, you don't really get a whole lot of shape this way. Like now that black's already relatively solid, you're kind of on your own for like furthering the shape of this group. But if you play this one, black's corner is not that strong yet, so black should want to connect up, especially since this stone is a little bit weak too. And then if black, let's say, pushes like this, because if black jumps, then black has a horrible weakness, like this ladder or this ladder. So black can't really get ahead of himself and start jumping just yet. That's the weakness of the Kosumi shape, is that it has a liberty problem. So that's why black is pushing like this. But now, since you have this extra stone here with this diagonal, you don't have to trot along like this. You can actually jump to here. So jumping is the only thing that would make sense here. And then black won't make sense if he doesn't continue. So one way that black can actually connect up to this is not by trying to do it like this and failing, like getting all cut like that, but actually by just calmly peeping, because if white tries to disconnect, then this is pretty savage and powerful for black. So this would be horrible for white. So white actually has to just let black go. But white does have a slightly lighter way to play. White can actually jump like this and still be all connected. And black still will want to connect up. So now you can see that this shape is a little bit better than like just having two stones like there and there. So white can even Tanuki now and play somewhere else. So you can think of this as a reduction. And black had 3 whole opening moves invested here, but only came out with like maybe 20 points or so. So considering that white has Komi, this third move of the game, and these other corners and Sente, you should see then that white is quite fine. It's all about staying calm and not always thinking that your opponent has more than you. Funny enough, when I'm black, I'm usually the one who's paranoid about white's Komi, so yeah. Komi is big. So now you guys have a couple of basic variations for each of these openings to learn and memorize, because they're very classic and they're very important kind of prerequisite knowledge for playing these openings successfully. So you'll notice a common trend with some of these openings is that like white's not really in a rush to deal with these moyos. You just gotta think from your opponent's point of view sometimes. Like for them, it's really hard to surround those moyos fully, and it takes a lot of moves, so they're worried about not being around the board enough and being too like all eggs one basket. Thanks for watching. Yeah, you guys could have asked the questions, and I would have kept stopping and answering, but if you guys are okay with me just droning on like this, then I could honestly do this for like 24 hours. Yeah, but it was meant to be an interactive lecture, and it kind of was, but yeah, but that's fine too. So I hope this was helpful, especially if you guys didn't know some of this. And hopefully you might consider valuing territorial like side and corner based moves a little more and being calmer when you're fighting against Moyos. During the middle game, you might have times where your opponent is sort of bluntly surrounding Moyo with moves in the center, like actually moves in the center. My advice for that, for later in the game, is that one thing to really remember is that there's a really good reason why we start in the corners and the sides and we slowly expand toward the center. And we only build up the center itself if a lot of conditions are met, like the whole board really, really suits it and there's not that many sides that you need to surround. It's because not only is it hard to surround, and often the number of points that they get with like, let's say they make their Moyo bigger with like 3 moves that are all out in the center. If you take the number of points they got from those moves and divide by the number of moves, usually it's actually not so much. The other thing is that when one player has Moyo potential in the center and the other one doesn't, and one player is reducing, let's say, the person who is reducing is not really gaining territory, they're only reducing, right? And on the other end, if one person is just bluntly surrounding center, they're not reducing or preventing territory for the opponent, they're only getting territory. But most extensions on the board, like even this corner enclosure that you see here, this is like taking away something from black and getting something for white, right? So usually getting like territory from the edges of the board is more efficient because it's sort of double. It's getting territory and it's also taking away something your opponent could have gotten. So even in the middle game, like when you guys get into the middle or late middle game, try to like look at your own center potential or your opponent's and see how maybe small it is. Like sometimes even like with players close to 1 dan, or even maybe even sometimes with the lower dans, but usually with like single digit Qs, people will be like in the middle game playing these jumps, like these big jumps or all these moves that surround little areas of the center. And it looks visually deceiving, but if you actually count like with your finger, it's like, hey, this move only gets 5 or 6 points. And it's also not preventing them from, like, it's a spot where only you could get points too. So it's also doubly worse. So in those situations, even if there's no fighting or life and death happening, consider just playing like a second line Hani and Connect, or a one space third line territory extension, or something that looks really visually small, but it's actually really big compared to those center moves. Like your typical, let's say we have a situation like this late in the game with a lot of other stones everywhere. Like let's say there's 180 or 220 stones on the board, or at least over 150 stones. A move like this is much bigger than most of you would think, unless somebody has shown you or you read a book or something. Like this kind of move can easily be like 10 or more points, because attached to this move is usually follow-ups like this, or maybe maybe a clamp, or like for white, there might be, of course there might be a cut, but there might also just be even just this. But that's a lot of reductions, right? And all of those are Sente. That means they're all a part of the original value of the Hana and Connect. So if you consider it also in terms of swing, like this is how much white gets and how much black loses, but you also have to take into account how much black gets and how much white loses the other way. So yeah, this whole lecture was mostly about the very beginning of the game, but keep in mind that even later in the game, sometimes the center is nothing to be afraid of. So, but it's for another lecture, I guess, another discussion, calculating move values. So I guess, what time is it? 9:42, and I started at 7. Oh, I haven't been going for as long as I thought. But yeah, I will end it there, I suppose. And thanks everyone for coming and watching, and Happy New Year, everyone. Maybe next time I'll ask again about New Year's resolutions and all that stuff. I want to hear those. And yeah, feel free to give me a shout out to what kind of lectures or what kind of streams you guys would like. Do you guys want me to play with you? Do you want me to... well, I will play more 7 Dan games soon. I know that we just got that other account to 7 Dan, so you guys... And we played a couple of games. They're pretty funny because I did end up winning both of them, but each one was kind of funny. Like, my opponent just disappeared for one of the games or ran out of time or something. But yeah, I want to get that account to 8 Dan, so I'll definitely do that soon. But yeah, so take it easy then, and happy 2018, everyone. Bye bye.